Darrell Brooks. They're laughing at me. Hello, I'm HG Tudor. I often explain that Harry's wife is the gift that keeps on giving. Darrell Brooks is pushing hard to challenge for that particular crown with the wealth of material that this buffoon is generating through the trial that is televised at the moment. There is so much that can be dissected to demonstrate so many aspects of his narcissism in action, his interactions with other people, his responses to challenges, to wounding. It really is an absolute encyclopedic opportunity to see a lesser in action and, of course, being dissected. I'll tell you about which sub-school he is in due course, but I would ask you, valuable viewers that have taken an interest in this trial and also the dissection of this material, to encourage others to access it and to share it. Whilst I appreciate there's many people that enjoy Harry's wife getting a slating as a consequence of her narcissism, this does provide another opportunity to understand more about different dynamics, and more people really ought to take it up. There is so much to analyse with regard to Darrell Brooks, and as mentioned, one could sit all day watching the live feed, comment about it, and creating video after video after video. I'm taking selected excerpts, and thank you to those of you that have provided me with your suggestions. I'm working my way through them as fast as I possibly can. Here we have an instance of Darrell Brooks complaining about the fact that he's being laughed at. Narcissists don't like to be laughed at. You need to laugh with us. If you laugh with us when we tell a funny, then you're giving us fuel, pure positive fuel. You're demonstrating that you're under control and you're providing us with fuel, and therefore all is well. But if you laugh at us, that's challenge fuel. You're suggesting that we are laughable, that we're not important, that we're inferior, somebody that is to be laughed at, to be ridiculed. And that really does get to the narcissist. Whilst, of course, there's the provision of fuel, which isn't an issue, you're challenging the narcissist when you do this. However, it's also the fact that you will see Brooks's rampant paranoia operating here, which I'll dissect for you in a moment. I'm going to play you the relevant clip for you to watch and form your own views about, and then I'll dissect it for you. Here comes the clip.
There was an objection to questions regarding cross-examination. So the objections were by the state. One had to do with there was questioning about possible testimony with his niece and nephew, and then the jail cell search issues. So Mr. Brooks, you asked the questions. The state had objected. Since you're the proponent of what would presumably come in through the testimony of Detective Casey, what is your offer of proof as to why I should allow Detective Casey to come back on the stand and testify about his interaction, I believe it was with your mom, and possible testimony of your niece and nephew?
It don't matter with Detective Casey. He's off the stand. He's not going back on the stand.
No, but I told you I would recall him. I wanted to take it up outside the presence of the jury.
How do I supposed to know?
So are you withdrawing that, sir?
How am I supposed to know? I think I deserve a chance to rebut what was just said. I think I deserve that much if it's a fair trial.
What information do you want to provide to me about that last exhibit?
About what last exhibit? I'm talking about the audacity of the prosecution to just put that on the record when it's stating it's untrue.
I don't know what you're talking about. What's untrue?
We just heard her talk for 5-10 minutes straight. Now don't nobody know what I'm talking about.
I don't know specifically what you're talking about.
There's a reference made to what I'm supposed to know about the evidence stacking up and this and that, as if that has any bearing on what I still think and what I'm still going to present. It doesn't.
Well, that's not what we're talking about at the moment. I made a ruling on an exhibit.
She's been laughing and making comments under her breath the whole time during the whole trial, and I never said nothing. I don't know what's being said, but I can tell that it's directed towards me. I'm not an idiot.
I haven't made any of those observations,
I didn't
sir.
say you. I didn't say you, Your Honor.
No. What I've observed is
listen, Please.
Go ahead.
For her to sit there and try to play it off as if she's not referencing to me, she must think I'm an idiot.
Nobody
That is
said
very
that, sir.
disrespectful to me. I haven't said anything about that until today. She's done it numerous times.
What are you talking about? I don't
Her
know what you're
laughing
saying.
under her breath. Her trying to cover up the microphone so they can laugh and hee and key. That they've been doing that the whole time. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything about it.
I have not noticed that. What I notice are 3 attorneys who cover up the microphone so that they're not heard when they're conferring with each other about evidentiary issues or about testimony.
So why is it always laughing and giggling?
I haven't noticed that other than the one thing you pointed out.
Well,
today,
we have cameras. That's what the cameras
Mr.
are for.
Brooks, let's refocus our attention on what we're here for, and that's
okay,
this trial.
then I'll take that as...
The judge commences by summarising the position and invites Brooks to explain why she should allow Brooks to recall Detective Casey to the stand and testify about his interaction with Brooks's mother and possible testimony of the niece and nephew. Notice while this is all being stated that Brooks stares upwards into the sky towards the ceiling. He does this repeatedly, and you'll see it in other excerpts from the trial. Why is he doing this? Well, he's demonstrating contempt for the judge, and his narcissism is guiding him to do this as a form of nullification of threat to control. In effect, it's a strange kind of silent treatment, because although he's there, he's purposefully avoiding her eye contact, because in Western society, it's generally deemed polite and appropriate to look at the person who's talking to you. And therefore, in the circumstances, with him purposefully and very much avoiding her gaze, not a momentary look to one side or a glance down at his papers, but purposefully and fixedly looking upwards towards the ceiling, is a form of silent treatment. Basically saying to the judge, I don't see you, I'm not really listening to you. Of course, he is listening, as we see that he responds, but it's a form of contempt through silent treatment for the purposes of nullification threat to control that the judge poses when she's explaining things to him. Eventually, his gaze shifts back, and the judge comments, I don't know what you're talking about. What's untrue? Challenge fuel. This irritates Brooks, causes an eye roll, and again he looks into the air, seeking to nullify in that moment the threat to control posed by what the judge is doing. He then remarks, she's been laughing and making comments under her breath the whole time during the trial. And he's referring to one of the attorneys that's prosecuting the case. I doubt that the attorney has been laughing all of the time. I suspect that the attorney may occasionally have given a short laugh of bemusement at the ridiculousness of his behaviour, and indeed that would be entirely appropriate. Nevertheless, she's not sat there guffawing and pointing and going, ha 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 ha, at Brooks, although one could understand that she may well be inclined to do so. What's actually happening here? Well, it's his paranoia. All narcissists experience paranoia, but the lesser narcissist especially so. That is because the lesser narcissist has a narrower range of manipulations available to him or her to assert control over people. They tend to be based on heated fury, physical violence, sexual violence, the destruction of property, verbal violence, stroppiness, storming off, basic triangulation, insults, belittlement, invalidation, all low-key and often sledgehammer smashing the proverbial nut. Because of that narrower range of manipulations, the lesser's form of narcissism needs to operate in a way that brings about a reaction and response as fast as possible, and therefore they are imbued with huge amounts of paranoia. Why is that person looking at me? Are they talking about me? They're saying something about me. They're laughing about me. I'll give you an example of this paranoia in action. Let us say a lesser narcissist, let's pick middle lesser, goes to a bar with his girlfriend. On entry, she says, I'll go and get the beers in. He nods, I'll get a table for us. Her confirmation that she's going to get the beers demonstrates that she's under control because she's doing something for him. He goes and gets a table, and he can see her at the bar waiting to get served. There's no problem so far. She's still doing something which matters in relation to him. She's demonstrating she's under control still. The narcissist then notices that she's talking to a man at the bar. She's smiling at him and engaging in backwards and forwards conversation. This is now a problem. The narcissist is wounded. The wounding is substantial because his intimate partner primary source is no longer doing something for him and is engaging with somebody else. The narcissism now has to jump into action to protect this narcissist from this massive wounding. To do so, it needs to motivate him to intervene in this situation as promptly as possible in order to nullify the threat. Accordingly, paranoia is unleashed. What's actually happening is that the girlfriend is talking to a colleague from work. There's no romantic involvement. She's smiling at him by being pleasant. There's no flirtation. She's not touching him. He's not touching her. However, the narcissism can't just allow this lesser narcissist to think, oh, it's a colleague, it's okay, because that won't allow him to get control. Instead, it needs to motivate this middle lesser narcissist to do something to get control. And therefore, harnessing paranoia, it causes him to believe, through the revision of the immediate history, that she is flirting with this individual. She's not. It also causes him to believe that she's all over him, fluttering her eyelashes at him, touching him, shimmying her titties at him. None of that happens. But in the hallucination, in effect, that the narcissist experiences as a consequence of the interpretation that his narcissism is placing on what's going on, in his mind, his narcissism is telling him she's flirting, touching him, all over him, batting her eyelashes at him, jiggling her boobs at him. That hasn't actually happened, but in the subjective reality of that middle lesser narcissist, that is what has occurred. Accordingly, he has his fury ignited. Quite simply, who the fuck does she think she is behaving like that, and who the fuck does he think he is messing around with my woman? He storms over and shoves the man out of the way, telling him, what the fuck do you think you're playing at? He's now asserted his control over the intervener. The narcissism has done its job. Of course, there may be a collateral consequence. The colleague may well fight him. The girlfriend may well rebuke him. But that's in the next moment. But in that moment itself, the narcissism has worked by causing, through paranoia, the middle lesser narcissist to believe that he's seeing his girlfriend flirting with another man, that other man is being a dirty dog, and he goes over and physically assaults him by shoving him violently into the bar. Similarly for Brooks, what's happening is that his narcissism causes him to believe that he's being laughed at repeatedly, that he's being ridiculed, that they're taking the piss out of him. Accordingly, the paranoia does that to cause Brooks to assert control over the judge and also indirectly over the attorneys by in effect complaining about them, smearing, to the judge. Unfortunately, for him it doesn't work because the judge isn't accepting what he has to say, because she explains that she doesn't see what he's seeing. His narcissism needs to drive him to act in the way that it does to get control and draw fuel. Paranoia is harnessed by that narcissism to cause him to see something that either simply isn't there or to warp something that's happening and take it out of context, blow it out of proportion. Those of you that have been involved with the narcissist will be fully familiar with this. And this is what is happening to Brooks. He carries on saying, she must think I'm an idiot. That's very disrespectful to me. She's laughing under her breath, trying to cover up the microphone, laughing, they've been doing that the whole trial. The judge explains, I've not noticed that. Challenges Brooks. He rolls his eyes in irritation. I have noticed 3 attorneys covering up the microphone so they are not heard when they are conferring. Then he continues, why is it always laughing and giggling? I haven't noticed that. We have cameras. He continues to argue again with the judge because she's issuing challenge fuel to him. The judge then states, let's refocus, looking to end the interaction. Brooks's paranoia makes him believe that he's being laughed at, either when it's not happening, or that where there is some laughter, that it must be to his detriment, or that there is laughter to his detriment, but rather than shake it off, he complains about it. So that also is a demonstration of the truth, the half-truth, and nowhere near the truth. The attorney might have been laughing about him, in which case he uses that truth as a means for complaint. Or she was laughing, but it was nothing to do with him, but he makes it about him, half-truth. Or she wasn't laughing at all, and therefore his narcissism revises history by telling a lie, which he then leverages for the purpose of the assertion of control over the judge and the attorneys. Another sliver of interaction between Brooks and the judge and talking about other people, but an excellent opportunity to understand more about narcissism in action, showing so many facets of it. Paranoia, the response of a threat to control, the necessity of asserting control, a form of silent treatment, irritation, and the use of the truth, the half-truth, and nowhere near the truth. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for watching.